ladies and gentlemen. It's Tea Talk time where the topics are real, relevant, and relaxing. It's Tea Talk time, and here's Lady O.
Well, thank you, Tracy, but I'm not Lady O. Today, we will be talking as a Tea Talk team about breast cancer, a very important topic within our community. So I hope you will enjoy what we have prepared for you today. Now, you may say, people may think, well, why are we speaking about breast cancer? We're speaking about breast cancer because it is, especially within the African American community, it is more women, in fact, pass away. African American women pass away from breast cancer than non-white women. So it's a very important topic for us. And I really love the way First Met puts a spotlight on breast cancer during this month. Last week, we had a ceremony to honor those that have passed away, as well as the survivors, and it was very touching. I loved it. I like the way you call the names of people that you know that have passed away. That way, you honor, you respect them, and then it's a way to have the people that love them and care for them know that we love and care for them too. And then also, we are having a breast cancer breakfast awareness breakfast this coming Saturday from 9 to 11:30. And I've heard that there will be over 44 survivors that will be there. And again, it will be a way for them to be honored, for them to be just to show love and care for them. There will have some poetry, some singing, and probably some gifts for them as well. So it will be an exciting event. So I just want to share a few facts about breast cancer. There are, which is an amazing fact, over 40,000 women that pass away from breast cancer every year. That's really an astounding number when you really think about it. That's a lot of people. And then among those people, 90% of 90% of those are survivors in the non-white in the white community, but in the African American community, there are the survival rate is 77%. So you can see that that's a the rate for survival among African Americans is less. Now let's think about there are some reasons for this disparity. And one of those reasons is that we are typically diagnosed at a later stage of breast cancer because y'all know how we are. We don't like going to the doctor. We don't want to go get those mammograms. So if we don't do that, then the breast cancer is caught at a later stage, which makes it the treatment has to be more aggressive, and then the breast cancer may not be able to be treated as easily if it had been caught earlier on. And also, um, Black women have a 37% higher death rate after being diagnosed. And the survival rate is also less for Black women as well. So that should impress upon us. I don't like going to get those mammograms either. They're very uncomfortable, but it's necessary. It's a necessary evil in our society. So, what are some ways to decrease the disparity? And I think Tracy, you're going to tell us about those ways to decrease the disparity between non-whites and African American sisters.
Well, some very, very key and very simple things that we can do. One of the things we must do is we got to schedule those mammograms. We have to schedule them. We can't put them off. I put mine on my calendar like clockwork. I go in. We have to do that. Like we do anything else, we schedule to do certain things. We got to put that. We have to put our health as a priority. And a lot of times we take care of everybody else. We make sure everybody's getting to the doctor, everybody's getting their stuff done, and we get put on the back burner. And by the time we get to get the mammogram, the doctor's scratching their head like if you had come in a few months earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get those mammograms done. Increase our awareness. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Do your homework. Research. There are so many the mammograms and the places to get them is so extensive. You know, it used to be so. Now they have people doing them for free. They have mobile mammogram services. So just be proactive and do your homework. And you know what? I take people with me. I ask my friends. You know, I love my friends and my family. Hey, have you had your mammogram? Let's go get it. Take them with you. Increasing the number of women who get them,
Mm-hmm.
and don't put it off. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't care what happens. My husband will tell you if Tracy don't do anything else, she's going to get that mammogram.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
you got to make that a priority. Now, talking a little bit about some ways to prevent, since we have a high rate of dying, there are some things that we need to do. And when I say we, I'm putting me first on the list. And I've started some of this because I had a major health scare a few months ago, and it really opened my eyes. Like I got to do better. One of the things we got to do is reduce the alcohol use. You know, we have to cut down on that. Eating healthier. It's easy to go to Popeyes on Tuesdays because they got that good special, but we need to go home and cook some vegetables, do some smoothies, put some vegetables in those in our smoothies, and take our vitamins and get some
Mm-hmm.
rest. I'm gonna say that again: get some rest. Find better ways to deal with stress. You know, instead of like you said, alcohol or whatever. Hopefully, we were praying about that, but we have to find healthy ways to deal with our stress. Be physically active. I have really been intentional about working on this part. Getting physically active, moving, doing something, keeping yourself healthy. And then limit your, a lot of us are going through menopause. So even limiting your post-menopausal therapies, estrogen and all that. You don't want to, some people say, well, it makes me feel better, but there's some side effects that go along with it. So you want to make sure that we're limited to that. And if you smoke, stop. um, and it's just not healthy for us. It's so many different things that smoking causes. So we want to reduce that. And then maintaining a healthy weight. And that goes along with the physical movement and eating healthy. Those are some things that we can do, being proactive or just lifestyle changing to reduce the possibility of getting breast cancer in the first place. Okay. And then
Yes. Yes.
we talk about,
Yes. I want to say,
sure.
go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead.
No. Another thing I wanted to just say is that the stress part, I just want to just really, really lean in on that a little bit more because I know African American women, we take on a lot. We're under an enormous amount of stress. We got to let it go. Some of this stuff that we're doing, we got to let some of this go.
Yes.
Stress is a killer. It's killing us, and we got to let it go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one way to relieve stress is through walking. And I saw Sister Deborah Baxter said Girl Trek has started to help her keep moving. So one way to relieve stress is through walking. Not only is it a stress reliever, but it also lowers your blood pressure. It helps with your diabetes. That A1C number starts to decrease. It strengthens your heart, so it helps your heart. And like you're saying, stress. When I'm out there walking in the seeing the trees and getting the fresh air and the sunshine, the stress just comes. It comes down. You can feel it. And when you're done, or when I'm done, I have more energy. My thoughts are clearer. It's a perfect way. 30 minutes every day walking.
And Shelly, I've learned the importance of that because I used to say I don't have time.
Mm,
And I look at it like this now, especially after the situation I dealt with. I don't have time not to.
right. That's
It's
true.
kind of like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Yes, you do.
Yeah,
We
you
make
do.
time for what's important to us, and we got to put ourselves back on the front burner and stop putting ourselves on the back burner. You have to do it. We owe ourselves that.
That's true.
You go to gyms, honestly, you go to gyms, and my walking is more dealing with my job because it keeps me very active. But even in going to the gym, when I go to the gym, you know who I see? I see white women.
Right, right. You don't
And
see us as much.
I don't see, and I know we got the hair thing going, but we got to say, I am important enough to do this for me, to do this for
Yes,
my family, to do this to survive.
yes, yes.
So, I want to talk a little bit about some of the risk factors and the symptoms. And um, while I was going through this journey in my life, one of the things the doctors were telling me is they were asking some of the things that you look for if there's breast cancer, there is nipple discharge, bone pain, breast pain or discomfort, skin ulcers. And you can Google and look at some of the pictures, and they become, it's very, very obvious that something is not right. So
Mm-hmm.
swelling of the arms with the side developing, at the side that's developing the cancer. You might even experience weight loss. And sometimes it's your age too, because typically as you get a little bit older, you're at higher risk for developing breast cancer. And then overweight, diet and lifestyle, menstrual and reproduction. They say women who take birth control pills after a certain age are at a higher risk. And then also your family history.
Mhm.
Typically, if you have a mother or aunt or someone, you're probably at a higher risk of developing breast cancer. So I know, when I reached out to my aunt, and she kind of talked me through because sometimes in your family we have these family secrets. So you're thinking only certain people might have it, and as you talk, it's important to talk to your family and find out, hey, do we have this in our family, and what are some things that I can do to prevent? But as I was talking to her, she began to tell me about other people in the family that I didn't know that
Mm.
went through the same thing. So it's important to talk to our women in our family as well.
Yes, yes.
So, and then the factors that are related to African American women and mortality rate, and covered this just a little bit. One of the things, a lot of us lack clinical coverage. We have those barriers to early detection and screening. Just not knowing where to go, not reaching out to the right people, unequal access to improvements in cancer treatment. Some of those studies that they're doing, they're not always offering those to us,
Mhm.
and we have to be advocates for ourselves and ask about that and research. The things that are out there, we're not always involved in it, so we need to make sure that we're abreast of what's going on and what studies are out there that we can participate in. Um, so those are some of the things that attribute to the survival rate of the disparity between African American women and white women.
Very good.
Yeah.
So now we do have a very special guest, and she is a member of First Metropolitan Church. And Sister Gail Smith is on with us today. And Gail, welcome to Tea Talk.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be joining you ladies today.
Thank you. So tell Gail, would you please just share some of your story with us?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I had lost a lot of friends, and they were very young. They were all in their 30s or early 40s. And I was looking at single mothers. I was looking at women who were married and starting their families. And for some reason, it seemed like they were leaving early. They were leaving very young.
Mm.
And breast cancer was the disease of the hour. It was like COVID. COVID hit,
Wow.
people started leaving. Everyone was like, what's going on? And the numbers kept going up. That's
Mm.
how it was with breast cancer. So I'm very proactive about my health. And I decided I'm going to get a mammogram. And I was like 35, 36 at the time. I called my doctor, GYN. She had no problem scheduling, me to get a mammogram. So I went in thinking that it was just going to be routine. This was my first mammogram, as a matter of fact. And I walked out feeling a little better because I felt like I had did the right thing. 1 week later, I get a call from the director. I went to Houston Northwest Medical Center, and I received a call from the director from the women's atrium. And she told me that they saw something, the pathologist had saw something on my mammogram, and that I needed to make an appointment right away to get a biopsy. And I said, well, thank you very much for calling. I will call you back. I have your name and number. I will call you back. I'm at work right now. About 20 minutes later, the phone rings again, and now it's the pathologist. He said, Miss Smith, he said, this is Dr. Rose. I need you to come in right away. I need to do a biopsy on you. So I knew at that point that this was not anything that I could put off. And if I was really proactive, I need to go ahead and make that appointment. I went in, the biopsy was done, and I got a call about a week later from my GYN doctor, and she wanted to meet with me. And she said, bring your mother. And I knew then that it was not going to be good news. So it was good news in the fact that they caught it early. On the other hand, I was only in my 30s. And one of the things that trigger me now, if there's anything else that I can share with women, and I share this out of precaution, because even now we still have that banner that when you're 40, get your first mammogram. The only thing I tell women is you do not have to wait until you're 40 to get your first mammogram. And I was listening to Tracy, and Tracy was going over, some of the things that we need to be aware about. If you know that you have a family history of cancer in your family, I think the latest one that I've heard about is Katie Couric. Some of you may have heard that she was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. At the same time, she lost her husband years ago to cancer. She lost her sister a couple of years ago to cancer. And Katie has a daughter. So when you talk about family heredity, her daughter, I don't know, she may be a teenager by now, but she cannot wait until she's 40, simply because her dad had cancer. Her aunt, Katie's sister, died of cancer. And I hope your audience understands what I'm saying. And now her mom was diagnosed with cancer. So it does not hurt to know that, you know what, I'm approaching my 30s, or I'm in my 30s. And right now, whether we like it or not, a lot of cancers that African American women are being diagnosed with, a lot of these women are under 40. So I see this more and more. And I think a couple of years ago, I noticed that there were a lot of women in their 20s that were being diagnosed with breast cancer. And the scary part about that was their diagnosis was severe. It was extreme. Again, it could have been hereditary, or maybe it was to the point where they were not aware that you're 20, you should still be doing breast self-exams. But I think, as I told people before, this is a disease that cheats. And the more you are aware of what you need to do, and again, thank you, Tracy, and thanks, Lady O, for having this show, and we're talking about this. You need to treat this as if this is a well woman's exam, which it is. I don't like going to the dentist, but I know how important it is. And we need to get out of the fear mode. There is not enough pain that you can go through in getting a mammogram that should prevent you from doing this yearly. The technician is very trained. The machines are very far advanced compared to what they were, 28 years ago when I was diagnosed. And any twisting that you have to do, any squeezing that you feel, it is for you. It is to find if there's anything there. I also have dense pressed breast tissue, which means it's hard even for the x-rays in that machine to catch anything. That's why I have to be proactive and do my own exams. If I notice any changing in the breast, if I feel any lumps or anything, I know exactly what I have to do. We just have to be more proactive, stop the fear factor. The greatest fear is having it and not knowing it. I need my sisters to be more proactive, and I need you to take control. Some people say, well, how long does it take? How long do I have to wait on certain things? Be proactive, pick up the phone and call. And the more they know, oh, Miss Smith is on the line again, she's calling back, the quicker they're going to get back with you. But I was blessed. I had a good surgeon, and I even liked my pathologist. And the surgeon told me before I even had surgery, he said, Dr. Rose and I have been going back and forth. He wants me to take your breast. I'm telling him no. She's in her 30s. She may get past that 7-year and make it to the 10-year mark where she may not have any other issues for a long, long time. He said, Gail, what we're going to do, we're going to take out the area, and then I'm going to take out a wide margin, and we're going to leave you under anesthesia. They're going to take that, all that tissue, they're going to test it. If we find that the cells have moved into your margins, we're going to have to take the breast. The only thing I remember after that, after they put me under anesthesia, my mom was shaking me in the recovery room. And the first thing I heard her say was, the margins are clear. The margins are clear. Do you hear me? And she was like, do you hear me? And she's shaking me. Do you hear me? The margins are clear. And I'll never forget that, because breast cancer is a type of disease that not only impacts you, it impacts your whole family. Everyone feels it. So if you have a family member and maybe they're sick, or the baby falls and gets hurt and it hurts you, imagine how that family feels when you come back with the diagnosis. So everybody is impacted by this. And so the good news was I had the breast, but I said earlier, my breasts are dense. So every year when I get my mammograms, I always get, your mammogram is normal. However, your tissue is also dense, et cetera, et cetera. I'm aware of that. So that keeps me on point, that I have to constantly check my breast. I have to constantly check under my arms, check my chest area. And I think once you have your first mammogram, for those of you that are not 40 yet, but you want to wait until you're 40, one of the main things is just the fear of the squeezing. The squeezing is just a part of the process, whether you like it or not. It's not enough pain to make you pass out. Take some Tylenol. It'll absorb any pain you feel. The technicians are very thorough. They're very good. But all the twisting and the lifting of the arms and the turning to the side, hold your breath, then breathe, that type of thing, for those of you that have had these mammograms, it has to be done, because they have to check for the lymph nodes under your underarms. They have to check for the cells that are also in your chest. They're doing the best they can. And so the best that we can do is be aware of genetic factors, be aware of hereditary factors. Somebody mentioned exercise, less stress. Meditate if you have to, but be proactive, and don't be afraid. There's something called the white coat syndrome, where your pressure goes up when you go to see a doctor for whatever the reason. I need you to lose that white coat syndrome. The doctor should tremble when you come in, because they know I've got somebody here that is serious about their health and their well-being. And if you don't feel comfortable with your doctor or whoever you go to, or you feel you're not getting the answers, don't hesitate to find another doctor. There are great doctors out there that truly care. I'll tell you what happened to me after I had my diagnosis and my surgery, and I was going through the radiation process. And the radiation, it's not as hard as chemo, but it does have its own side effects. And I was burning extensively. I could just feel myself burning. I was hot. I didn't feel good. And I called the doctor's office, my oncologist at that time. And I said, would you have the doctor call me back? Because I just don't feel good. I feel like I'm burning. I'm on fire, which happens to be one of the side effects from radiation. And so he called me back, and I told him how I was feeling. And he said, well, Miss Smith, he said, it appears that it's all in your mind. And I did everything I could except not to drop the phone, because I couldn't believe this man just told me, it's in your mind. Well, the next morning I wake up and my whole chest is flaming red. I have blisters.
Oh, wow.
You could see that it was clear to me that the radiation was just running amok, but that was one of the side effects. So I called back to the office, and they worked me in. And when he opened my gown, he said, I owe you an apology. And I'll never forget what he said. He told me this, and I use it to this day. He said, sometimes the body has a way of letting us know when it's had enough. He said, I'm stopping your radiation treatments now. Your body is telling me that it's had enough, and I apologize to you for what I said. I wasn't mad, because I had learned that over a period of time, doctors, nurses, oncologists, phlebotomists, your whole team sees this every single day. They see it in women in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and on. And it impacts them. Every day
Yes.
they see this. So I wasn't mad. I thanked him. As a matter of fact, we both hugged each other,
Mm.
and that was it. But I say that because I have to even remind myself when I get on my, like a hamster, and you're doing so much and you're doing things and you don't want to slow down. I have to remind myself that when my body gets tired, that's its way of telling me I've had enough. You
Yeah.
need to rest,
Slow
take a
down.
sick day. You're not sick, but heck,
Hmm.
take a sick day anyway and just relax and do whatever you want to do. And so
Right.
sometimes as women, and I think Tracy, you said this earlier, or Shelley, you said this earlier, that we take care of everyone else, but we have to remember we are a priority. At
Yes.
least be a priority to yourself. And so
Hmm.
just like you make the doctor appointment for your kids to get their shots, just like you may have to beg your husband or your significant other, come on, go to the doctor. I don't know too many men who are always happy about going to the doctor for whatever reason. You have to take care of yourself. This has to be a priority to you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Because breast cancer, it's like cancer. It is cancer. It
Right.
cheats. And so the sooner early detection makes a big difference. And just the peace of mind of knowing, okay, I've got that out of the way. I'm good at least until the next year. But within
Hmm.
that year, you still have to do your own breast self exams. You have to be aware of how you are feeling. If you notice that there is a discharge from the nipple, or maybe the skin is starting to like pucker, or maybe you're putting deodorant under your arms or something, and you feel something that you haven't felt before, and it feels kind of hard. Maybe you're noticing you've got pains around the chest area as the breast goes into the chest. That's your sign, not necessarily to be afraid, but I need to get to the doctor ASAP. All right.
Hmm.
And not all of these signs mean I'm going to die. What it means is that it's not supposed to be there. The sooner we find out what it is, the sooner we can get to taking care of what it is, and let's continue on. And so I just pray that overall, as African American women, as Black women, we will realize that ultimately our breasts are a part of us, and
Hmm.
no one can tell us what to do with our bodies, right? And
Yes.
no one can tell
Right.
us what to do with our breasts. And so when we remember that, and then remember, your family is watching you, your children are watching you, your daughters are watching you. And so it's important that they see mom,
Yes.
mom goes and gets her mammogram every year. So as she remembers this, as she grows into adulthood and womanhood, she'll remember, I have to go get it too. So that's kind of my story.
Yes. Thank you, Gail. That was very impactful.
Thank
Very impactful and
Thank you for
powerful.
letting me share
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I do have a question.
Sure.
You already told us about lifestyle changes,
Hmm.
being sure we get our mammograms,
Hmm.
de-stress, exercising. I want to ask you about, because you mentioned deodorant.
Hmm.
Have you read any studies about deodorant having uh, cancer causing chemicals in them, and maybe the importance of using natural deodorants?
I have read some of those. It's not necessarily studies, but I have read articles like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like natural oils, and
Okay.
I use natural oils a lot. I always tell people, and the information is out there. You use what fits you.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of products on the market today that are comprised of a lot of chemicals. And now that I am a breast cancer survivor, I try to use deodorant that does not have aluminum in it. I think I pronounced that right.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Or I may use creams,
Okay.
essential oils. But like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I've always liked essential oils anyway. You just have to
Okay.
know what to mix with them to get the
Okay.
effect that you want.
Okay.
But as you do your own research, I can't recommend anything because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what you've used. But I
Right.
would encourage you to do your own research, find what works for you, find a
Mm-hmm.
herbalist.
Okay.
If you think I like natural oils and I use them every now and then for this or that, research more into natural oils and see what works for you. There are a plethora of things out there that can be used as alternatives to what we normally buy. I'm not
Right.
going to name any of the trade names, but
Yes.
most of us have probably used some. We see
Mm-hmm.
commercials. It smells
Yes.
good. It's easy
Right.
to use, but is
Right.
it good for you?
Yes.
You're the only
Exactly.
one that can determine that. But if you feel I would like to try something different, something that's more natural, then
Mm-hmm.
start your journey. And the journey is part of the fun. You get to mix and match different things. And if
Right.
it works for you, stick with it. Stick with it.
Exactly. Great. Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you for
very
that.
welcome. You're very
Yeah.
welcome.
And then there was a question in the chat. What do women do when they don't have insurance about getting mammograms or health care, breast care?
That's a very good question. That's a
It
very
is.
good question. There are some places, I want to think of a place, I think it's called the Rose, somewhere downtown. I'm sorry, I don't have that address, but there are places you can call, like the Rose, and they can recommend places where you can go because you don't have insurance. And let's make this
Okay.
clear, it's not just African American women that don't have insurance. I want to take
Yes.
that stigma off of that right now.
Yes. Yes.
But in this day and time, there's going to be a whole lot of folk that won't have insurance the way, prices are going up, supply and demand for this and that. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say call the Rose because they have a plethora of information. They're like an information knowledge base. And just
Okay.
tell them, I need to get a mammogram. I don't have insurance. Where can I go? And they will be more than happy to tell you places or even mobile vans where you can meet somewhere and still get a decent mammogram.
Okay. Great. The Rose. Well,
Mhm.
somebody please put that in the chat as a resource for our listeners, please. And then also, I have one more question or one more statement. Sister Rachel Page Hill, who is also a member of First Metropolitan, she said that she has a family of breast cancer. Her grandmother, her mother, her aunt, her sister, and then her daughter. And she lost her daughter to breast cancer. She said it was a -3 cancer um, earlier this year or late last year. So I just wanted to acknowledge her, and I believe her name was Rachel. So
Okay.
thank you, Sister Rachel, for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing. Let me ask Rachel something. If she can put that back in the chat. What was the age of her daughter?
With Deborah or Flair, would you all please type that question for Sister Rachel? And while we're waiting for that, so what kind of support, Gail, do you think women that have been diagnosed with cancer, what kind of support can their families and can their friends give them?
All the support they can. All the support they can. And I think I said earlier, when a woman is diagnosed, it just doesn't not impact her. It impacts the entire family. They also, I know, mom, she went with me when I received my diagnosis. And mom almost passed out at the doctor's office. And I was so glad she was sitting down. So I'm looking at the doctor and the doctor's looking at my mother, and mom, her head just went back and her arms just went limp. It was just the fact that here she is, my mother, and now she's got to hear your daughter has cancer. So it impacts the whole family. And I have seen families rally around that loved one because they understand this is serious. Maybe they never thought it would happen. But as far as support, oh my gosh, there's so many support groups out there. I was very privileged after my diagnosis. And while I was going through the whole treatment phase, I joined a wonderful group called Sisters Network. Some of you may know about it, or you've heard
Yes,
about it, or you
yes,
may know
I've walked
someone.
with them.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I will always recommend people to Sisters Network because I know Karen, who founded Sisters Network. I know what they do, but it is a camaraderie of women. And not all women in there are just breast cancer survivors. And that's the beautiful thing about it. But you
Mm-hmm.
find out that, number one, what you're going through, you're not alone. There's
Yes.
someone in that support group that understands exactly what you're going through. You have survivors in different stages. In other words, somebody is newly diagnosed, or you may have someone like myself that came in after diagnosis. Now I'm in treatment. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have those that have gone through diagnosis, treatment, and they're fine, but they're there to encourage everyone to keep going. There are
Yes.
activities that you can also do in a support group. And this is not just for breast cancer. Like I said, cancer cheats. We've got all kind of cancers, unfortunately, out here. So there are a plethora of support groups for anyone that's diagnosed. I think I see something in the chat that says she was 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is scary. Okay. So bless your heart. God bless you, because we don't think anyone in their 20s or 30s, should be, let alone diagnosed with breast
Yes.
cancer, let alone die from it. But
Yes.
like I said, if there's anything that I can leave with women today, is that you don't have to wait until you're 40 to get that first mammogram. And again, a lot of Black women, African American women, we are diagnosed with breast cancer and we're under 40. So that rings a bell to me. And I'd hate for someone to get diagnosed in a later stage because they waited until they were 40. So
Mm.
don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the pain. Just take Tylenol. It's not that bad. Listen to the technician. You'll be happy when you walk out of there. If you're like me, you run out because you're happy that it's over. But
Right.
remember, this has got to be something that you do just like you brush your teeth, just like you take a shower. You don't think twice about it. You
Yes.
should not think twice about getting a mammogram. Make it a part of your life, because this is your life that you're talking about. This is your life that you're trying to save. And
Mm.
it's so important that if you are diagnosed and you have a family, you now have got to lead by example. So for
Yes.
men get breast cancer too. And we
Mm.
know for men, I think the most dominant one is right now is like prostate cancer.
Yes.
You shouldn't have to continue to beg that husband or that partner or whoever, go get your exam. And now that they see what you're going through, it may spark them to say, okay, I need to step up and do what I need to do. You
Yes.
are the role model to your children. So your children will be able to say, well, mom had it, but mom went and got those mammograms. She, went through what she had to go through and she's still here. So they're going to look at you and they'll be there for you. But I think this is great that we can talk about it. Hopefully information that I've said or sharing my story. I see people are also, giving you information as to where you can call and certain support groups that you can go to. So
Yes.
all of this is a part of survival. And it's just
Right.
trying to get you from one day to the next year, to the next
Yes.
decade, so you can live a full, long life.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, Sister Gal, I wanna again thank you for
Thank you
this
so much.
information, because it's helping so many women. And as we were talking about the Sister Rachel and her
Mhm.
her daughter, I was one of the questions that I wondered about. I went through my a situation where I was had an abnormal mammogram.
Mhm.
One of the things I was researching was it was talking about staging and grading.
Mhm.
And I didn't understand that, but I did read that, for some reason, African American women are at a higher risk of developing what they call triple negative breast cancer. And I guess I was just trying to really understand what was the difference between the staging and the grade. And that to me was so eye opening, because I figured, they were both one and the same, but I learned different. So, are you able to speak a little bit about the difference between those two? I know the grade versus the staging.
Unfortunately, I'm not, and I apologize for that. I think, had I stayed really with just the breast cancer end of it, I could probably tell you more. I now am more of making sure women do what they need to do. But I remember I was diagnosed, I believe, at a stage 2, going into a stage 3. And I think I said earlier, the medical personnel see cancer every day, and they see women come in, they fight like heck to keep them alive, and sometimes they lose women. And so when you talk staging, and this is another reason why it's important that I say to women, don't wait until you're 40, because we've given you some good information here. And the sooner you know that, okay, I do have a hereditary factor. I am not 40, but I have to acknowledge that my great grandmother had cancer, my grandmother had it, my mother had it, and I've got two other sisters. We need to get checked, and we should not wait until we're 40. And I think I mentioned Katie Couric and her daughter. This, you have to understand what is going on with our family. But unfortunately, I don't. I do know that I was diagnosed at a stage 2. I was happy, that that's all it was, and my margins were clear. But if those margins had not been cleared, if I did not go in and take the initiative to get that mammogram, by the time I was 40, it could have been a stage 5. So what does that mean? It means that my treatment options would have been different.
Right.
It means that I probably would have had to have a mastectomy. And so it just changes options for you. Okay. That's what it means. But no, I really cannot address that because I haven't been in that part of the breast cancer side for a while. I'm more on the other side, helping women understand, you have to be proactive with your life and your health. But hopefully, I'll say this, Tracy, don't just leave it there. If you need to call your doctor or whoever your doctor is and ask them to send you some information on staging and the other one that you mentioned. That way you'll have a better understanding yourself of what it is. And don't back down on it. They should have no reason, no problem whatsoever to direct you to information. If you really want to know about staging, and if you want to know, it was the other name that you mentioned, they should be able to provide information for you.
Yes. One of the reasons I ask, I have a dear friend of mine who went through the cancer, and hers was a stage, I believe it was a stage 1, and it was a less aggressive. So I think it's the staging, and then also how the cells react within that is how she explained it to me. And for some reason, she mentioned to me that African American women are at a higher risk of developing the more aggressive breast cancer.
I've heard that, and you know what? And I don't know if the judgment is still out as to why, because we are waiting until we're 40. Which still bothers me after being diagnosed in my 30s, because I do believe that we know about it. I do believe we know about it, but we just, for whatever reason, won't make that appointment. And it could be due to I don't have the insurance, or what will my family think, or what will my neighbors think. Are we really aware how important hereditary plays in this? And seriously, the longer we wait, like I said, if I had not been proactive in my 30s, by the time I would have got 40s, I could have been I know I would have been at a different stage, and my treatment options would have been different. So, that's why, because I was diagnosed, I will always tell women, you don't have to wait until you're 40 to get your first mammogram. If anything, it'll just give you a peace of mind that right now everything looks good, but that doesn't mean there's nothing else you need to do. You still need to do your own breast self-exams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Know the warning signs, understand the hereditary of your family, and don't be ashamed to talk about it to other women. I went back to work after I had my treatment, and there were so many women that said, you know what, I have not had a mammogram, I need to get one. And so sometimes they just see what you go through and realize, you know what, I need to step up my game and do what I need to do to be here for my family. And so, and then after going through Sisters Network and being with those wonderful women there, you realize that this is something that is serious, and it's nothing that you can't play with. But it's nothing to be afraid of, because as long as you're staying on top of it, and you saturate that with prayer, God will lead you through. It doesn't mean you won't get diagnosed. It just means He's aware of it. He's got you in the palm of His hand. And today, oh my gosh, there are so many options for treatments. And, I'm just amazed at all the things they have now that they didn't have when I was diagnosed with it 28 years ago. One lady told me, who was basically, she was ministering to me after I had my surgery. She said, you know, when I was diagnosed, the doctor didn't give any options. It was just, we're taking your breast, and that was it. So we've come a long way from I'm just taking your breast to, you know, now everybody's collaborating. We don't have to take the breast. You know, if the margins are clear, she can keep the breast, and we'll just keep monitoring her to, you know, now we've got reconstructive surgery that looks absolutely great. So, you know, there are more options. So the whole reason you do this is so you can continue to stay here and be a mainstay for your family.
Thank you for that. That was some powerful information. Very, very helpful. One of the things that you mentioned, Sister Gail, that I just want to really, really highlight right now is you talked about a support group.
Yes.
And I know I could just imagine the emotional and the mental toll that
Mm-hmm.
this takes on a woman. So can you kind of speak to that just a little bit more?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll be glad to. You know, one thing about the support groups, and I'm so grateful that we have them. It's just a place where everyone knows, and I think I'd said this Sunday, there is a camaraderie among breast cancer survivors, especially when you're in that support group, because everyone there has received a diagnosis. You may not be getting the same treatment, but you're going through your treatment, and people understand that. There are going to be people in that support group that may be going through certain clinical trials to see if this medicine works on this type of cancer. So if someone else comes in that group 2 months from now, they may actually be using that new medicine, and you were part of the trial. So it's just a system of sisterhood, of sharing, that we're all in this together. It's okay to cry. Nobody's looking at you like, what's wrong with you? We know what's wrong with you. All of us have it. Okay. It may not be what you particularly have, but we have it too. And it's a safe place. You know, we come in, we share what's going on. We talk about what's going on. You know, for women, one of the things we love is our hair. And for some people that go through chemo, sometimes they lose their hair. There are those who don't lose their hair, but it shakes a woman's confidence to her core. You know, we like to be pretty, we like to smell good and all that fun stuff. Sometimes when you go through these treatments, it gets kind of rough. And so you can let all of that out with your sisters in that support group, and then you get uplifted. There are events, you know, a lot of times that we share. I think you said that you went through, you walked before. Shelley, I think you said you walked before in the Breast Cancer Walk for Sisters Network.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's wonderful. And so there's all kinds of things, activities that take place within that support group. But most of all, it's just the camaraderie that we all know why we're here. Our goal is the same, to get through this. And we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that other women know I am a survivor. I am not ashamed of it. And as I said Sunday, you know, if you have any questions, ask us. If we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know, but we'll do our best to help you find the information. But there is support there. And this is something that no one should go through alone. And I even tell those who are newly diagnosed, take someone with you, because what you hear the doctor say and what the doctor has said, by the time you try to understand it, it may be totally different than what was said. So I always tell those, if you're newly diagnosed, take someone with you. You can record it if you want. Most doctors don't mind, but it's best to have someone go with you. Don't go to a doctor's appointment alone until you're strong enough to handle it, but take someone with you, because they're there for your support. And most doctors that I have worked with have been absolutely fantastic. But again, if you come across someone that doesn't have time, that cuts you off, or you just feel like, you know, I still haven't gotten an answer, what's wrong? You don't have to stay there. You can, you know, seek out a new doctor, request that your records be transferred. You have to speak up, let them know, you know, but you'll get through it. And it seems hard at first, but you will get through it. You're not the first. You won't be the last.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story to tell. And I shared this with someone at our church. And I said, the way I looked at it, the only reason I had breast cancer was so I could help somebody who's going to get breast cancer, and they're not aware of it yet.
Right.
They're not aware of it yet.
Yeah,
and so all of us, you know, they're not aware of it yet. Just like I wasn't aware of it. But all these women reached out to me once I was diagnosed. So I said, the only reason I was diagnosed, and in my 30s, when everybody is still saying, when you turn 40, get your first one. And I'm out here saying, don't wait until you're 40. Don't wait until you're 40. There is no law that says you have to wait until you're 40. And if you have insurance, insurance will pay for it, even if you're not 40. If you're in your 30s, they will cover it for you. So, it's a learning experience for all of us. But the sooner you shake the fear and realize, what, I have to be serious about this, as if I have a toothache and you can't wait to get to a dentist. You may not run to get a mammogram, but it's something that will save your life.
Yes.
That's true. It's Sister Gail. I just, I'm in awe of the information and just your courage and your journey in this and sharing this out and being so transparent. And one of the things that you said that was so important, and I, even whether it's breast cancer or whatever you're dealing with, women, we have a sisterhood. Yes. And when we go to those appointments, you know what? Even if I got to take somebody on the phone with me, my husband is, I've always taken my husband with me, but sometimes I want my girls with me too. So it's important that we bond together and understand that that's what God have us here to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that is so key. But Sister Gail, Tea Talk, we really, really appreciate you coming on and just sharing out this information. I cannot tell you, my heart feels just warm knowing that we have this bond and we have this support. Mm-hmm. Our church is so supportive, and we really, really appreciate that. One of the things that we did, and Sister Shelley highlighted that last week in our service, we highlighted those people who were survivors and also that we lost. And before we leave, our show is just about over, but before we get off of the show, I want us to do the same on the show. If we could just highlight and just maybe put in the text those survivors, ladies that have survived, or the ladies that we've lost along the way. And I'll start it off. I am so blessed that my aunt Mildred Mitchell, she's now 75 years old. She developed breast cancer when she was 50. And thank God she's still here with me.
Wonderful.
Yes. And I have an aunt as well. She's 92 now. Her name is Jerlene Kelly, and she is a 20-year survivor of breast cancer.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh.
I have a niece. Her name is Tina Giles, and she is a breast cancer survivor, and she danced her way through the whole journey.
Amen. That's wonderful.
I've lost an aunt, Catherine Clark, and a cousin, Debbie Brown, to breast cancer.
I have a friend also, Angela Thomas. She's a 16-year breast cancer survivor.
I have a friend, Chanel Abagi. She is a breast cancer survivor. She's she was diagnosed 5 years ago, so she's doing well. She's in remission. I just wanted to highlight Sister Cheryl Foley. She said her aunt is a breast cancer survivor.
Wonderful.
And Rachel Hill. We can't forget Rachel Hill.
Yes.
And please continue to pray for her mother and her children.
And Sister Baxter, she said she lost her sister-in-law, Patrice, at the age of 32. And then she has breast cancer survivor sister-in-law, Lucille, for 40 years. So we want to remember those.
I have another survivor, a close friend. I can't remember the years, but her name is Thea Collins, and she is cancer-free.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And Tanisha Wilkerson, she's also a survivor. I don't remember the number of years either, but she's a survivor as well.
I was looking in the chat to see if we had any more survivors. I'm just, you get so, God is so good, and you hear about those success stories, those survivors.
Yes. But I don't see any more. But thank you, Sister Gail, for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, and for being so open to share your story. You have an amazing story, a powerful story. So thank you for sharing with us and with the Tea Talk audience. And ladies, don't forget, we have the Breast Cancer Awareness Breakfast on this coming Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11:30. Um, and it is going to be a wonderful event for survivors, but as well as for people that have lost their loved ones. It is a way to honor them and respect them as well. So we want to thank you for joining us on today. And please share the information, ladies. One thing that I keep hearing Sister Gail say is that you do not have to wait until you are 40 to begin to
Absolutely
get your
true.
mammograms. Yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes. Don't wait. Do not wait, especially if you have um, family members that were diagnosed with cancer. So we want to thank you for joining us this week. Thank you for the amazing Tea Talk team on today. And we will see you next week at 3 for Tea with Lady O. Bye bye.
Bye bye.